今天我们到佛蒙特州一个小镇采访一个我们认为很有意思的人物。这个人物呢是一个年轻人，对我们来讲，他的一些经历、成长的过程，我觉得给中文读者、观众来看一下、了解一下，挺有意思的。我们今天就采访 JOSH，我们提出一些问题，让他给我们回答。那么我们看一下他的人生历程。JOSH，你出生在哪个城市？有几个兄弟姐妹？
Thank you for having me today. I'm grateful to be here. Yes, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is in the southeastern part of the United States. And I have one sister who is about 3.5 years younger than me.
夏洛特是一个好地方，我7月份刚刚去过。
Yeah, Charlotte's very beautiful, wonderful place. Yeah.
能回忆一下童年时父母与你兄弟姐妹在一起的生活时光吗？
Yes, I remember my childhood well. I grew up in a really lovely little neighborhood, community of a number of homes, and I remember it being, for the most part, a pretty happy time in my life. A lot of friends in my neighborhood that I enjoyed playing with, and yeah, so very grateful for my.
大部分的家庭都是爸爸在外面工作，妈妈在家照顾孩子们的生活起居。在你的小时候，你家是这样吗？
Growing up, both of my parents worked, and after school, I was picked up by a group of people who'd take me to what was called a daycare. So mom and dad both worked, and many families still do function in the way you've described there, where dad goes to work and mom stays home. But that's changed a lot in the last, 40 or 50 years or so. More and more, both mom and dad both go to work. Growing up, I went to a public school.
在你的小学、中学，您上的是公立学校还是私立学校呢？
For me, it was a little bit of both. So when I was really young, the school bus would pick me up. And then, so like elementary school, for most of my time in elementary school, the school bus would come into my neighborhood and would pick us up. But as I got older, I ended up getting a driver's license and had my own car, and I would take myself. And there was some time where my mom took me to school, but early years, school bus, and then later on, I drove myself.
中学生是几岁开始可以申领驾？
When you're 15, you can drive if you have another licensed driver with you. They call it a permit. But when you're 16 is when you can drive with a license all by yourself.
美国的公立学校我们知道是免费教育，学校里还有哪些另外的收费项目？公立学校与私立学校在教学上有哪些区别？
Well, from what I remember, and things may be different now in some places, but from what I remember, the only additional thing that you might have to pay for would be a lunch from time to time. And again, I don't fully remember, but I think maybe you might pay for lunch, a couple dollars each day. But beyond that, I don't think there were any other expenses from what I. Well, public schools are schools that are funded through taxpayer dollars, and private schools are schools that are funded through other means, maybe through tuition payment. Families would pay money to go to the private school, or through grants, or other means, but not through taxpayer dollars. So that would be one of the big differences. Another difference would be private schools are able to, or more free, I would say, to practice a particular philosophy or belief system, whereas public schools seek to be much broader and more open to varying, I guess, perspectives, where a private school can focus on or come from a particular religion or philosophy or belief system. So those would be the two big. You understand that? The two big points is where they're funded from, and then their belief system.
你大学就读的是哪一所？读的是什么专业？
So I went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I majored in mathematics. I was a math major. Yeah.
北卡的那个夏洛特分校，我也去过，我知道有一个有轨电车，开过来，然后它这个学校很大，有一个免费的巴士在学校里面就是转来转去。
Yeah, yeah. I do remember it pretty well. It was, I would say, a mixture of excitement and nerves, being very nervous. So I was really excited about this new chapter in my life, but also very nervous because it was new. Pretty new that they did that, I think. It's called the light rail in Charlotte.
还记得刚入校的情景吗？当时的心态怎么样？大学参加过哪些社团活动呢？
Well, there was a lot of things to do when you're in university here in the United States. Probably the two big things that I did when I was in school was I played baseball, so I was an athlete, and I was on the varsity team, the school team. Played for 4 years, so that consumed a lot of my time. And then the other thing that I did a lot of was be a part of a campus fellowship, a ministry called Campus Outreach. And so I would go to weekly meetings, worship gatherings, and whatnot. And so those were the two big things: baseball and the Campus Outreach fellowship meetings. There were other things to do, but those were the two things that I did.
The Christian fellowship?
The Christian fellowship, yeah.
你们棒球的话，经常参加比赛吗？就是州和州的比赛，或者是就是本州里面的比赛吗？不同的大学之间的比赛吗？
Yes. Yeah, a lot. I mean, every year, I think we played 60 games, baseball. So a lot of games. Baseball is one of the sports where you play a lot of competitions. And so my freshman year and sophomore year, I didn't get to play very much. I was injured. I had an elbow injury and then I had a knee injury. But junior and senior year, I played a little more. Still not a lot, but I played a little more in my junior and senior year. But yeah, we played a lot of different competitions. Does he want to know particular teams that we played, or does he just want to, or does he just want to know kind of if we played just in general? Okay, yeah, we played a lot. 60 plus games every season. Yeah, 60, yes, a lot. Yeah.
Oh, just your university 1 year.
Yes, every year. Yeah.
你的学费是贷款还是父母支付的呢？在大学的学费？
Well, my parents made a deal with me, I guess, that if I made good grades and didn't cause too much trouble, then they would take care of it for me. So I chose a state school, which cost less, and I had a lot of scholarship opportunities. And because of that, my parents said if I keep good grades, then they would take care of it. So my parents paved the way. Very happy about that.
大学的生活，会有快乐、烦恼、高兴、沮丧。回顾一下你的学校生活，毕业后你从事过哪些工作呢？
So my first job and right after graduation was working for a construction company. And I had several different positions with that company. But basically the big thing I did was manage inventory. So I managed their inventory, ordered their pipe and their concrete, and helped order tools and all that sort of thing. And then at some point I ended up working outside with the crews doing the work. I became relatively fluent in Spanish. I worked with a lot of Spanish speakers outdoors doing the construction work. It was a really wonderful time. And then after that, when I went into seminary, I held some other jobs on the campus doing kind of handyman type stuff. Do you know what that means? It's sort of like painting and fixing, little things and tidying up or changing out light bulbs and that sort of thing. I just kind of that would have been at Reformed Theological Seminary. That was when I was doing my graduate work, and also in Charlotte. But so construction, and then handyman. Those were the two.
你对这个公司的工作的这个薪酬满意吗？
By the end of it, yeah. In the beginning, right out of college, I wasn't making great money, but it was enough. But I worked there 6 years, and by the end of it, I was making pretty good.
所以说你的最好的这个性格特点是什么？
I think I'm a good friend. I'm a loyal person. I don't like to talk too much about myself in that way, but I think if I had to pick something, I think that would be it. That I value being a good friend. I think friendship is something, at least here in America, that is kind of I consider kind of like an art form. It's kind of a lost thing now. People want to have relationships through screens a lot, and they're not really good with people in person. And I think I don't know. I guess if I had to pick, I'd say I'm good with people. I'm a good friend. I listen well. I'm there for people when they need me. Yeah, I guess that's what I would say. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, probably one of the joys were certainly making some lifelong friends. That was a joy. That was the time too in my life where I came to faith in Jesus. So I came to believe in Jesus. So that obviously was really meaningful, very, very significant. Those are joys. And then experiencing life away from home, even though I was in my hometown, Charlotte, big city, having the experience of being kind of out on my own. So those were some really wonderful joys. I had a couple of serious, one in particular, that was really meaningful, serious relationship with a woman. It was really meaningful for that time in my life. And even though we aren't together today, it was a learning experience. It was really significant for me. So those were some joys. Some sorrows, some challenges were, sort of, I guess, the challenge of. So my home life at that time was a little tumultuous. There was some chaos at home between my mom and dad, and things are much better now. But at that time, it was really hard, and so I went home a lot to try and be a help and to bring some strength and some stability. And so that was a challenge. That was hard, yeah. So and then the wrestling with the future and struggling with what the next chapter of your life is going to look like. That could be a challenge, trying to figure out those sorts.
性格中你自己认为最大的缺点是什么？
I think I sometimes doubt myself a lot, which can be a good thing. To not always assume, right, that I'm correct, because I'm not always correct. But sometimes it can be like a lack of confidence. It can be I'm always assuming that I've messed up in some way. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, over worry.
Yeah, I can worry. I can overanalyze sometimes, and yeah, so that can result in kind of like sometimes a lack of confidence, or what we would call second guessing myself, doubting myself, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's a struggle for me.
你所拥有的物质财富有哪些？这些财产对于你的意义是什么？
I don't think I have a lot that's really of much value. I mean, we're grateful to have a decent car that works well. With some help last summer, we were able to get a decent car, which is very important here in Vermont. Beyond that, I wouldn't really say I have a lot. I mean, I've got some baseball cards that are mementos to me, collectibles, little cards, you know what I mean? Baseball, basketball cards with famous baseball and basketball players on them.
Is that really worth it?
Some of them can be, yeah. I don't have any that are a lot of money, but I have some that are a little bit of money, so worth a little bit. So those are things that, I guess are important to me. Probably more than anything else would be my books, my library. I've got a lot of books that are really meaningful to me. Of course, it's not the books as much as it is what's in the books. The ideas are really precious to me. Got a lot of books on the Bible. The Bible's obviously very, very important to me. So me and my wife have a lot of Bibles. Beyond that, I really wouldn't say that I have anything that's very of extreme significance beyond my family. Obviously, my family is very, very important, more than any of that stuff. My relationship with God. So the material possessions aren't hugely significant to me. I don't really have. I probably have a lot compared to other people in the world, but I guess what I have is not of really super great significance to me. Does that make sense, Eugene? What
Yeah.
你的哪些优点吸引了你的女朋友与你恋爱，最终成为你的妻子？
What attracted her to me,
Yeah.
or me to her?
Her to me, her to you.
Oh, well, I guess you'd need to get her here to ask her, but but I think what she would say first of all was that I'm a man of Christian faith, and that I take my faith very seriously. That's very important to her. I was committed to my church. I was a student of the Bible, a person of prayer, and those were all very significant to her. I think she also desired someone who would lead her with integrity, but also with someone who was gentle but strong. And I wish she was here. She could tell you, but I think those would probably be things that she would say. I'm not. She's the funny one. I have no sense of humor. So I wish I could say I had a great sense of humor, but I don't have a great sense of humor.
我看你身体很强壮，一定是长期锻炼的这个结果，是不是这一点，让你的妻子感觉到是不是有你的身体很强壮，有点保护欲呢？所以她很喜欢你这一点呢？
Well, maybe. I mean, again, I guess we would need to ask her, but I guess you could say, yeah, she thought I was handsome, and but I don't think that was the big reason. I think it was all the other things I mentioned. Yeah, she actually, when we met, I was working in construction, and so I was very skinny because I worked outside all the time. And so I'm still fairly trim, but I'm probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier now than I was then. I was really skinny, yeah, because I spent a lot of time outside. So, yeah. He might find that interesting.
You were not so strong as you are now.
Well, I was strong, but I was thin, yeah.
婚姻一定是情感、价值观、信仰等因素相互的结合。谈谈你的家庭，介绍一下你与妻子相识相恋、步入婚姻的过程。
Makes sense.
Yeah. Like you follow the God's instructions.
Yeah. Well, intentional means there's a purpose.
There is a purpose from who?
Well, it means that I guess like it's not just about having fun, or it's about exploring something specific. So we wanted to see, like the whole reason we were going out to restaurants and things was to see if God wanted us to be married. So that's what I mean by intentional. Like there was a purpose, it was a goal. It wasn't like, you know, casual or relaxed. I mean, we were having fun, and it was, you know, relaxed, but there was a purpose, is what I mean. There was a goal. You understand what I'm saying? So like for instance, when we come to church on Sunday, the goal is to worship Jesus and to learn. We're not just happen to be here together, you know, by accident. It was something that was thought about. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm saying?
Yeah, you believed it for a long time, and you just met someone, you keep going the things actually maybe a long time ago. Follow the God instructions.
Yes, I think you're close to what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Because it might be a little bit hard to express in English, but I think I know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, for me and Megan, my wife, we first and foremost believe that we have to keep Christ at the center. Jesus has to be at the center, and we're in full agreement on that. And so that, I think, gives our relationship a harmony and a unity, because we're in agreement about that. So that's the foundation of our marriage, and because we are in agreement there, everything else kind of rolls out of that. So how we raise our kids, you know, our church life, how we spend our money, the way, the sort of things we watch or don't watch on the TV, the way we spend our time, you know, those are things that are built on top of that foundation of God. And so, so we, I mean, Megan is very different in terms of her personality, and her interests are, hobbies and things like that are different from mine. But all of that stuff is, we, you know, those parts of the marriage are easier, where we're different, because we have that foundation that's the same. That if we think of this as the sun, and that's God, everything else is revolving around that. Do you understand what I mean? And so marriage is much easier because of that. I mean, it has its challenges, like all marriages do, but because we see the world and life and the story of everything the same, you know, we can have a really good marriage, even though we're very different people. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we met at church. We had mutual friends. So she knew people and was friends with people that I also knew, but we had not met each other until church, until we started going to the same church. We went to the same university for a short time, but she's a couple of years older than me. So she finished up what she was doing at school. She didn't actually graduate because God called her to the mission field. So she went to Africa right in the middle of her time at school. She went to Africa. I didn't know her at that time, but when she came back, we happened to be a part of the same church, and that's where we met. And so we had a really great group of friends, and we would, you know, go out together as a group to movies, or to restaurants or to the coffee house, things like that. Sometimes we'd have people over to the house or something. Like I'd have my friends over to my apartment, or she'd have her friends over. And we got to know each other that way through spending time as a group of friends. And I guess I noticed that she was really fun. Obviously, she was a godly woman, and was drawn to that. And over time, we began to, instead of spending time in the group, over time, we began to sit together when we would go to restaurants or to movies. We would want to be with each other. And so I began to notice we were being attracted to each other. And then eventually I remember asking her, or telling her I was really attracted to her, but I wanted to see if we were compatible. You know what that means, compatible? And so I said, because I don't really believe in casual dating. I think that's can be really destructive and unhelpful. So once I had a sense that we were connecting, I remember having a conversation with her and just saying, look, I really like you, and it seems like you really like me. Would you like to see if God might be calling us to be married, and take some time to get to know each other one-on-one, privately, apart from our friends, and see where that goes. And so we began to, instead of always being with each other as a group, we began to spend more time alone to get to know each other. And we were very careful, and we were very intentional. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't casual, or even just for fun. It was to see if God might be calling us to be married. And eventually we believed he was. And so we, I proposed to her, and we got married a few months later. So is that making sense, kind of the way I'm describing it? You can ask more questions if that doesn't make sense.
你与妻子要养育4个孩子，你的薪酬支付了所有家庭开支账单后，是否还有存款？是否还有预算让你能让全家每年外出长途旅行一次？对近2年通货膨胀带来的物价上涨的压力，是否有深刻的感受？
Yeah, we have a little left over after all our expenses are paid to save a little. I wish we had a little more, if I'm honest. I wish we could save more. But we tuck a little away. And the church has granted me a few weeks of vacation every year. So I am able, we probably won't this year for various reasons, but yeah, usually we take a trip each year to go somewhere, to usually the Carolinas, North and South Carolina, to visit with our family. But yeah, the pressure is real. When you have kids, I think you feel that. You really feel responsible for them. And like you said, we've got 4, and so that's by today's standards, that's a big family. And so it's expensive, and that's hard. But thanks be to God, we have everything we need. So yeah, we're doing okay. So
3年的这个新冠疫情之中，你是否收到联邦政府、州政府发给你的现金补助或者食品券？
Well, a couple of different times during COVID, the federal government sent out money to families based on their family size and whatnot, to help out. I think they called it, COVID relief or COVID stimulus or something like that. So So yeah, and it may have, I can't remember, but it may have been dependent on, how much money you made and household size and those kinds of things. But we did receive a little bit from the federal government during that time.
在中国的大城市，父母对孩子的教育非常重视。每天放学后，孩子除了要完成老师布置的家庭作业外，还要在线上、线下学习各种课程，像英语啦、数学、语文、乐器、舞蹈、书法、编程这些。周六周日的课程也安排的非常满，孩子们除了学习，只有极少数自己的娱乐和户外活动时间。介绍一下你的孩子们放学后、周六、周日、寒暑假的日常活动。
Good question. So usually, so our family in the mornings we will have a short time of devotional or Bible study. Every morning, except on Sundays. We generally don't do it on Sunday because we're coming to church. But we'll do that pretty much every morning, and that might involve prayers and songs and whatnot. Usually during the school days, it's mainly just Bible study, but that's short and that's in the morning. And they go to school, and then, of course, right now my wife is homeschooling one of our children. One stays home, the other 3 go to school. But they spend the day doing their schoolwork, and that usually takes them into the mid or late afternoon. And then a couple of our kids, so they always have homework. Let me say that first. They always have homework, come home, they'll do their homework or projects that they may have. And then a couple of our kids are involved with extracurricular activities. So 2 of our girls do horseback riding. That's not every day though. That's every couple of weeks they'll go ride on the horses and learn how to do all of that. And we have one daughter who does piano. She's learning piano. And then our son has been playing baseball. That's over now, but we're trying to think of something he might do during the winter. He might do basketball during the winter. And then, of course, we encourage them to read books. We've got books and things that they read at home. We have a garden, so they do gardening a little bit here and there. We get them out in the garden to learn how to do that stuff. And then their chores around the house and stuff. So that's, week to week, day to day. Some of that varies. But that's a little bit of a sense maybe. And then we try and encourage our kids too to help with, so like for instance, each night we try and have one of our kids help me or Megan, depends on who's cooking that night, to help with the cooking, to teach them how to cook so they can learn how to do that. We have our kids help with laundry and like I said, all the chores. So each day they're involved in the work of the family and all of that. So yeah, does that give you a sense of?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
在美国，大多数人有信仰。你和你的家庭信仰哪一种宗教，哪一个教派？这所教堂我看分上下2层，规模比较大。那么2楼呢，我看可以容纳100多个人同时聚会，需要几名管理人员呢？
Well, the church has one pastor, and it's always had one pastor. And I think for this size of church, we would probably have 3 to 4 elders or leaders. So the pastor would be like the leader of the elders. And then we would have probably 7 to 10 deacons. The deacons manage the money and the property, so the building, and they would organize some events. Does that make sense? So, yeah. One pastor, 3 to 4 elders, and then 7 to 10 deacons.
些渠道获得资金，对教堂进行日常维护、管理人员的薪酬、教育聚会的费用支出。
it all comes from the donations and contributions of the people of this church, the members and participants in the church. Yeah.
别的区的还有吗？
So I'm a Christian, follower of Jesus, and the church I'm connected to, this church where I pastor, is United Church of Christ and United Methodist Church. Those are the denominations, but those denominations have strayed. You know what that means? They've changed, but for the worse. So not in a good way. So they don't follow the Bible anymore.
Which branch?
Both of them. So if I had to sort of say where I am, I would call myself a Reformed Baptist. That would be the sort of denomination or branch of Christianity where I am, but that's not my church. There are some people here that would call themselves that too, but we have a lot of other branches and types of belief here. So sorry, I know that's a hard, maybe hard for you to explain. But maybe the easiest thing to say would just be Christian, follower of Jesus, and this church is Protestant. That would be I think the easiest way. Protestant is, do you understand that? So that's 15, 17, sorry. All these new terms. So we follow the Bible. There you go. There you go. That's the easiest way. We are followers of Jesus who believe the Bible and follow the Bible, and you could say maybe the historic teachings of the Christian faith. Maybe that would be the way. There you go. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, sometimes we can do a fundraiser, like we could kind of like what we did on the park this summer, where we sell, boba tea, boba tea, or strawberry shortcake, things like that. So sometimes we'll do a sale of some kind, fundraiser, but that's small. It's not a lot of money. Yeah. But other than that, not really. Just the donations.
我知道你是牧师，观众们一定非常想了解这个职业，给我们介绍一下。
Yeah. So that word pastor refers to the idea of being a shepherd. I think the word itself goes back to this idea of shepherding, caring for sheep. And so the Bible talks about how the people of the church are like sheep. And of course, the Lord is the shepherd, capital S, the great shepherd, and I am his servant. But I've been tasked with caring for this flock, for these people. And that involves teaching them to understand, what it means to follow God, correcting them, encouraging them, supporting them in that way, praying for them. So prayer is a big part of my job, my calling, and and so that's the main thing. Is it's teaching and prayer, and then I help with a lot of other practical things. We do events, and I lead the elder board, and I try and train up leaders and all that stuff. There's a lot of other things, but the big things are teaching the word to the people and caring for them through that, and prayer. Those are the two big things. And you could also say, just really quick, a part of that, which is not as fun to talk about, is protecting the flock. So you think of a shepherd with a sheep. If a wolf comes in to attack the sheep or to harm them, the shepherd protects the flock. And so a lot of that is done through the teaching, protecting them from false teachings, from lies, distortions. And so yeah, that's a part of it too.
It's a long story.
Yeah,
I can explain in English.
yeah.
In Chinese.
周日是每个周日是教堂的礼拜日。作为专职牧师，你在教堂给教友们讲道，教友们除了听懂你教授的圣经章节的内容，他们的内心世界会得到什么？有哪些领悟？对他们的价值观、道德观有什么影响？
Well, if I'm understanding the question rightly, I think I guess what I would say is that it
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with your answer to the last question.
yes, sorry, something in my mouth, my beard. So I think sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I guess you can edit that out. So I guess the big thing I would say is that the Bible really is kind of like what I said with my marriage. It's foundational, and so everything I teach and say here comes out of the Bible. So the ethics, what's going on in their heart, all of that is shaped by what's taught in the Bible. And so there's a famous passage in Romans chapter 12 that talks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind, he says. So transformation as a person and what's going on in their inner world, to use the term that you mentioned there, that happens through the renewing of the mind. And so during the preaching and teaching of the Bible on a Sunday morning, that inner transformation is happening as people encounter the truth, and as the Holy Spirit takes the truth and helps them apply it to their heart. So it's not just knowledge that people are getting on Sunday morning. That head knowledge is, and what's taught on a Sunday morning is actually a part of transforming them in their inner being. It's a so the goal is not just knowledge; it's that their whole person be shaped, and I think that that's a part of of all of that we do on a Sunday morning as people encounter God, encounter the truth, as they worship, as they pray, all of those things. They're being shaped and molded into new creations. Is that making sense, Eugene, what I'm trying to say?
I'm trying to find the Romans 12, chapter 12.
Yes, it should be the verses 1 and 2 right there. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
每年你们举办各种公益活动，比如儿童足球夏令营，募集资金为肯尼亚农村地区建造水井，然后是集市义卖等等。还有哪些活动？这些活动的意义是什么？
So we, as a church, one of the big things we do every year is we put on our town's annual Christmas pageant, is what it's called. It's a live nativity. So we get almost every year we get animals to come, like a donkey. We'll have a donkey here, and it'll be out on the park out here. And our people, a lot of our people, and some from other churches will dress up in costumes like Joseph and Mary and the angels and the shepherds and the wise men, all the people that are part of that Christmas story. And the whole town will come. Well, not the whole town, but a lot of people from our town will come, and we will reenact the story of Christmas. And our church organizes that every year. and that's right around Christmas time.
Christmas Day.
It's that week. It's usually not on Christmas Day because nobody would come if it were on Christmas Day. Everybody's doing, but it's usually the Sunday before Christmas.
Before the Christmas.
Yes, it's for Christmas. We're retelling the story of Christmas. Yeah, but a lot of people dress up. You know what that means? Like put on a costume. Yes, but this is very organized. So we'll have one person who's Joseph, one Mary. We'll have a baby for Jesus, and so we'll retell the story that way.
Are they all sight? Are they all be told for what they can dress up?
Well, we have the costumes here.
Oh.
Yeah, and so, and people have parts, so it's like a play. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand, but how you make sure that each character just have one person to dress?
Yeah, so the people that come don't dress up.
Oh,
they're just watching. So they're watching the play. Yeah, so like we'll start right here in front of the church, and we'll have the Roman centurion, the soldier, and he's giving the announcement that Caesar has, Augustus has called this a census to happen, and Mary and Joseph are coming to Bethlehem. So that's where it starts, and we sing songs as we walk around the park to each place and reenact the Christmas story. So it's a play, but the town will come and participate and watch. So we do that every year. That's one big thing we do. It's not a charity event. That's just a fun thing that we do, and we retell the story. Another thing our church does that's pretty important is we manage our food shelf, our local food shelf, which helps a lot of the folks in our area that are struggling, that are poor, or folks that just need supplemental income, or not income, but supplemental food. That's something we do. Yeah, and there's a lot of other things I could get into, but those are two big ones. We do the pageant and food shelf. Those are really big. Yeah.
What is the significance?
The significance is we are in the Christmas pageant. We're trying to retell the story of the birth of Jesus. So that's very significant. And we bring people together to have a good time, but also to hear this very important message. I will oftentimes stand up and share the gospel with the community at the end. Right at the end, I'll tell them about why Jesus came. And so they get an opportunity to hear about God's offer of forgiveness through Jesus. That's very significant. And then the food shelf is significant because we're living out some of the teaching of Jesus, right? Jesus has taught us, to remember the poor, and the outcast, to remember the orphan and the widow, people that are in difficult circumstances, the weak, the broken. These were people that Jesus loved. And so, doing what we do at the food shelf, we're putting on display God's heart for those people, and so we're living that out. And does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? Yeah. Okay.
刚才你谈到了一个食品发放屋，那么我想了解一下，这个你们这个食品这个发放屋啊，我看到过一次，就路过一次，它好像一个小超市这么大小的一个食品发放屋，里面的这个食品丰富，是每月开放一次，任何人都是每周开放一次，是任何人都可以去领免费食品吗？是这样吗？我想知道这些食品、蔬菜、水果， 饮料的来源是从哪里来的？是政府提供、个人捐款、私人捐赠？工作人员是志愿者吗？是否领取薪资？
Yeah. So first question, yep, anyone can come. There's no restriction. Most of the people that come, though, are people that that don't have a lot of extra money, and they need some help. So it's but we don't ask any questions. We don't interrogate the people in any way. So anyone can come. The second question about where the food comes from. Most of it comes from the Vermont Food Bank. That's where we buy a lot of it from, which they get their donations from local restaurants and farms and places around, grocery stores that I guess can't sell the food because here in the United States, food has a sell-by date, and if it gets close to that or beyond that, they can no longer sell it, so they'll donate it. I believe the food bank gets some of their food in that way, or they may just have large donations from grocery stores that are trying to help them out. So we get a lot of our food through the food bank, which we buy it from the food bank. But we also get a lot of donations from local farms, just people that have chickens and want to, bring by some eggs or things like that. So that's the second question, where we get most of our stuff from. And then the final question about paid staff is that no, we don't have any paid staff. We may get to that point. We've thought about that, but right now we don't have any paid. It's all volunteer. Everyone's volunteer.
按照你的理解，就是说来领取这个食品的人，他是不是基本上都是属于低收入者？领取的这个领取食品时的数量有限制吗？那么中等或者较高收入者是否也会来领取食品呢？
The vast majority of people that come are low income, and we don't ask, but we know, because in small communities, you just kind of know the people. So this is a really small community, so we know a lot of people that come, and very, very few are not low income. I'd say almost no one goes that is middle or high income. And so, yeah, it's just once a week. It's open Thursday, once a week. And a lot of people will come every week, So we serve total a little over 100 people every week, which for our small town is a lot of people. So it's a little over 5,000 every year that we serve through the food shelf.
是什么因素促使你从事牧师工作？你认为这是你的终身职业吗？
I guess the big reason is that I really felt like this is what God wanted me to do. And I enjoy it. So it gives me a lot of joy. I like doing this. It's hard, but I do like it. Yeah, so that's the big reason, is that I think God called me to it, and I enjoy it. The second question is, I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, I hope I'll do this for the rest of my life, or as long as I'm able to, but I don't know.
当你遭遇到挑衅与冒犯时，你会用宗教的教育去诠释宽容、原谅肇事者吗？
I always, it's not easy, but I always try and understand. Jesus taught us to love our enemies, and he also taught us that we're blessed when we're persecuted for his name's sake. So when someone knows we're Christian and they attack us or speak against us because we're believers, Jesus said we're blessed. So he said, count it all joy because great is your reward in heaven. So yeah, we forgive. I mean, I'm not perfect, and so sometimes it's really hard, but we strive and desire to forgive. Yeah. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. It's not easy. But...
传播福音带给你哪些改变？你会为传播福音奉献一生吗？
Yes. Yeah. That's why I came to Vermont. Vermont is the least religious state in the United States. So the United States, I think a lot of people see us as a very religious country. And I think that's true. But there are some places where people do not like organized religion. A lot of people around here would say they're spiritual, but they wouldn't say that they're a part of any religion. Vermont's a really hard place to be a Christian. But a part of why I wanted to come to this area was for that reason, was to spread the gospel, was to tell others about Jesus. I think a lot of people around here don't even know who Jesus is. And so I want to share him and his message with them. And yes, as ever since I became a Christian, which was my probably my junior year in college, so some 20 plus years ago, I've learned that as I've strived to share Jesus with others, I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been a transforming process. I could share more about that, but I don't know how long you want me to go on about that. But so yeah, so I want to give my life to sharing the gospel, and yes, the gospel's changed me, and I've been changed as I've sought to share it as well. I mean, I could, if he wants me to share more, I can, but that's probably good enough for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a verse in Ephesians, I believe, that says, "Forgive one another, just as God in Jesus has forgiven you." So we forgive, and we don't return evil for evil, because God has forgiven us. You understand what I'm saying?
We'll forgive them as God forgiven.
Exactly, because He has forgiven us.
今天非常高兴，这个教师非常坦诚的跟我们交流了从他的这个出生、成长、学习、进大学，然后婚姻、爱情，然后直到他的这个职业，到最后他最终选择他那个牧师这个职业的这个全部的过程，等于是目前从小到大他的所有的经历都展示给我们的一个中文读者，非常感谢，谢谢。
Yeah, it's my joy, my pleasure. Thank you.